Good afternoon, esteemed faculty and staff, family and friends, and welcome as we celebrate this year's International and Area Studies class of 2015. I want you all to imagine the ideal Berkeley Saturday. The ideal college day. The weather is a comfortable 75 degrees. Everyone you know is out enjoying the day, lounging in the sun, eating Yogurtland. Your favorite band is playing on Memorial Glade, and the freedom and excitement of youthfulness is just vibrating through the air. I'm thinking in particular to one of those Saturdays back in March. One of those perfect days I couldn't enjoy because I had procrastinated on my thesis chapter due that following Monday. And if you thought Professor Karras was scary in IAS 45 or PE 100, you can only imagine how I felt having him as my honors thesis advisor. So on our way to the dingy, depressing dungeon we lovingly call main stats, I met up with a good friend of mine. And after about an hour of talking about all the things we had to do instead of actually doing them, she turns to me and hands me this book. She says, "Arianna, you have to read this, it will change your life, I swear." And she pulls this book out of her bag, titled The Defining Decade, Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them Now. I immediately thought to myself, oh great, another adult trying to tell me how to live my life. And if there's anything we've learned in our development studies courses or our peace and conflict studies courses about the proliferation of nuclear warfare, the lack of available drinking water, and the various human rights violations that occur on a daily basis, is that adults might not always know what they're doing. Understandably, I was hesitant to read Dr. Meg J's book. The Defining Decade stands as a how-to on reclaiming your 20s. It's perfect for the 20-something suffering from an identity crisis. And if you're like me, you probably have experienced at least 7 of those over the last 4 years. In fact, probably half of you sitting in this room right now are going to experience one right after this ceremony. And the other half, I'm talking to you parents. Not only did you get to go through your own identity crisis growing up, but you get to be there for ours as well. Dr. Meg J posits that your 20s is the most important decade of your life, that everything we do in these 10 years determines the rest. No pressure on anything. And maybe this is true. Maybe this is an overstatement to sell books, but she does bring up a very interesting point. She posits that your 20s, and thus your college experience, is the airplane ride to adulthood, beginning in New York, headed somewhere west, where the slightest change in direction makes the difference between landing in San Diego or Seattle. Our 20s, and college, we're filled with those slight changes in direction, forever impacting who we are today. And the craziest thing is we probably have no idea when or how this happened. This change could have occurred that time you were studying abroad and you missed your televised appointment because you somehow forgot there's a 9-hour time difference between Berkeley and Italy. And this in turn resulted in having to take an 8 a.m., which is a death wish for your sleep cycle. But maybe that missed appointment allowed you to meet a brilliant professor who would later on write that letter of recommendation that landed you that first job out of college. It could have been that time you were eating a bacon-wrapped hot dog on game day, and the resulting sensation of heartburn and guilt motivated you to becoming both a vegan and an animal rights activist by your senior year. It also could have been that time in Professor Bangu Randhawa's conflict resolution course, where you spent 3 whole classes mediating a mock divorce case. And after hours, frustrating hours, trying not to yell at your classmates, you realized that maybe law school just isn't for you. And it also could have been that time you signed up for Arabic in order to fulfill the IAS language requirement, not knowing that this skill set will later on allow you and your best friend to travel to Jordan to start a nonprofit teaching Syrian refugees the martial art form of capoeira. Hoping this will impact these children's lives positively. It's these little hiccups in our daily activities, mistakes, vainly motivated decisions that forever add that slight change in our life's direction, forever impacting who we are today. The identities ingrained into our internal structures make us who we are. Who did you become? Did you become the go-to best friend, the one that was there to listen to college woes and go to Cal basketball games or to the Academy of Sciences with? The one who understands that laughter shared with best friends is really the only way to survive UC Berkeley? Did you become a storyteller? Did you travel to Nicaragua and translate the local narratives of those in isolated indigenous communities into a research paper? The one who was able to share their own personal story while giving voice to and legitimizing the narratives of others much less fortunate? Did you become the global know-it-all? The one who knows obscure details about countries the rest of us have not heard of? The one who goes to the professor's office hours just to hang out, while the rest of us are in the hallway with a ton of questions about the readings because we don't understand it. But not you. No, you get it. And you like to talk about how much you get it. Non-stop. Did you become a social justice warrior? Did you stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement or help launch the campaign against sexual assault on college campuses, knowing that these topics are extremely difficult to discuss, but you discuss them anyway? Or, as my dad and his friends like to call it, did you simply drink the liberal Kool-Aid? Did you become obsessed with wanting to close the U.S.'s widening income gap? Longing to end the legion of problems of those in developing states, demanding equal pay for women, and wanting to end the racial injustices committed at the hands of authority figures? And even after your parents tried telling you, honey, this will all change the moment you start paying taxes, you ignored them and remained completely idealistic with a deep-seated hankering for changing the world. Oh, and by the way, I drank the Kool-Aid and it tasted great. And maybe you don't know who you became over these last 4 years, and that's okay too. Because if there's anything that this hectic mess of the 4 years was here to teach us, it's to find comfort in the uncomfortable, to embrace the ambiguity, to find stability in the turbulence, and to never take yourself too seriously. So, who did you become? Despite our individual evolutions over the last 4 years, I do have an answer to that question that we all share. After hours spent crouching over computer screens, after deadlines missed and papers aced, after attending the #1 public university in the world, one drenched deep with social awareness, and in a group of majors known for producing the world's shakers and movers. Today, we become IAS graduates. Now we can travel to India instead of reading about it in a textbook. We can take the mediation courses and apply those lessons to solving conflict in the Middle East. Now we can take all that theory that we learned at Berkeley and actually use it in the real world. And while this is so exciting and the world is now ours for the taking, we do understand that we will never have this undergraduate experience again. So if Dr. Meg Jay is right, and college is the airplane ride to adulthood, then the phrase, prepare for landing, has never been more bittersweet. Thank you to the IAS advisors who tried to get us to graduate before we got kicked out. Thank you to the professors who exposed and suggested solutions to the world's legion of problems. Thank you
To the friends who spent sleepless nights eating cheesy sticks and laughing about our stresses. Thank you to the parents who loved and supported us no matter how crazy we made you or how often we ignored your advice. Thank you to the University of California for making this a wild and unforgettable ride. Congratulations, IAS class of 2015. Thank you.